Camille Langston arrived at the company one morning like anyone else, quietly, neatly dressed, carrying a resume and belief in her worth. She waited in the lobby on the 6th floor. No one remembered her name. No one offered her a glass of water. One interviewer glanced at her file and whispered, "She doesn't fit the brand image." 30 minutes later, the woman they had just dismissed walked into the boardroom, not as an applicant, but as the new executive chairwoman. And in that moment, the entire board fell silent. This isn't just a story about someone who was underestimated. It's a story about the return of someone who was once overlooked, and how she changed an entire system not by shouting, but through unwavering strength. Watch the full story to see how she transformed the way we perceive value and leadership. If this story makes you think about how we see and overlook the people around us, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel for more real, powerful stories that inspire. New York, March. A light rain falls. Camille Langston steps off the subway at 57th Street Station, a faded shoulder bag slung over her shoulder, holding a worn-out folder with frayed edges. The brown paper folder has a smudged black ink inscription in the corner. Resume, C. Langston. She walks 3 blocks to a towering glass building. The front nameplate displays bold silver letters, Sutherland and Knox, Financial Group. Below it, an embossed slogan reads, "Building Futures, Leading Markets." Camille pauses briefly in front of the main lobby. A simple blue blouse, black slacks, and off-white sneakers. She resembles any job seeker from a temp office in Queens, but her eyes tell a different story. Her gaze is sharp, alert, and calm, as if she knows exactly what's about to unfold. She takes a deep breath and steps inside. The security guard looks her up and down. A direct, quick, judgmental glance. Not hostile, just familiar. "Deliveries go through the back entrance," he says, not lifting his hand from his phone. Camille isn't offended. She nods slightly. "I have an appointment." Interview at 8:30. The guard hesitates for a second, then checks the list on his tablet. Langston, HR Department, 6th floor. He presses the button to unlock the gate. Elevator on the right, and don't wander around. Not everyone is meant to be here. Camille nods, saying nothing more. The elevator ascends. 6th floor, the doors open to a hallway with gray carpeting and glass walls reflecting dim lights. A blonde receptionist typing away glances briefly as she hears Camille's footsteps approaching, then says nothing. Camille introduces herself. "Hello, I'm Camille Langston. I have an interview with the administrative department at 8:30. The receptionist smirks slightly. "Ah, right. Please have a seat and wait." No smile, no offer of water, no further questions. Camille walks over to the waiting area. Wooden framed leather chairs, cold and slippery. She sits down, placing the folder on her lap. No one looks at her again. She becomes a shadow. 20 minutes pass. No apologies for the delay. No one calls her name. But Camille remains still. She's not anxious. She doesn't check her phone. She doesn't tap her foot. She simply observes. She's been waiting for this moment for 6 years. And if she has to wait another 20 minutes, that's fine. The interview room door swung open. A young man in a white shirt poked his head out, glanced down the hallway, then called over his shoulder, "Langston? Langston? Who's? Camille?" Camille stood up and walked over politely. "Camille, Langston." He pointed inside. "Yeah, come in." It was a small room. 2 interviewers were already seated. One was a middle-aged man in a navy suit, stern-faced, with silver hair at the temples. The other was younger, wearing a plaid shirt and polished leather shoes. eyes half-focused on his laptop. Neither of them stood up. No one offered a handshake. No one asked, "Did you have far to come?" "No. Would you like something to drink?" They looked at her like they'd seen too many just like her. The older man spoke first. "You're applying for the administrative assistant position? Supporting the board?" Camille nodded. "Yes. I submitted my resume through LinkedIn on Monday after I saw the reposted listing." The younger man glanced at the folder she'd placed on the table. He didn't open it. "Where did you go to school?" he asked, just barely audible. "I graduated from Hampton University, Business Administration." The older man raised an eyebrow. "Oh, state school?" Camille still smiled. "Yes, I attended on a full scholarship." No one took notes. "Do you have experience working for major organizations?" "I was an investment coordinator at a fintech startup. After that, I founded my firm." "What firm?" "Langston Capital." Silence. "Never heard of it. Small time?" Camille just smiled. No explanations, no boasting, no reaction. The interview lasted exactly 8 minutes. No questions about her vision. No questions about capability. No questions that mattered. Eventually, the older man stood up first. "We appreciate your time, but to be honest, we're looking for someone with a more professional image." Camille stood too, not surprised in the slightest. "I understand. Thank you both." She picked up her folder, stepped toward the door, and then turned slightly. "Oh, I have another meeting, on the 11th floor, with the executive board." The younger man frowned. "The 11th floor is executive operations." "I know," Camille smiled, then gently closed the door behind her. Inside the room, one of them whispered, "Who does she think she is?" They didn't know. They were about to find out. The 11th floor greeted Camille with an entirely different world. Walnut hardwood replaced the gray carpet. Original paintings adorned the walls. The air carried hints of leather, espresso, and power. Here, no one asked, "What do you do?" They asked, "What do you own?" But for Camille, this place wasn't unfamiliar. She had been here before, just in a different role. 6 years ago. Camille had sat on the back steps of this very building, clutching a folder in her arms, waiting for her turn to interview for a junior financial analyst role. It was raining that day. Her mother had called from Atlanta, voice hoarse with a cold. "Don't let them make you feel small, Camille. They don't see your worth because they choose not to. But one day, you'll stand where they'll have no choice but to look up." She had walked into that interview full of hope. Well prepared, sharp analysis. Every answer is direct and backed with evidence. But the only feedback she received? "We're looking for someone who better fits the company's image." No further explanation, no trial opportunity. Camille still kept that rejection email, not out of anger, but to remember the sting of being dismissed by people who had never truly listened. In the 6 years that followed, she never came back. Instead, she built Langston Capital from scratch, a private investment fund focused on minority-owned businesses and overlooked startups, the ones never invited to the table because they didn't look like founders. She began with one shared office and $40,000 saved from freelance consulting. Year 1, invested in 3 companies. 2 failed, 1 survived. Year 2, first funding round, $2 million. Year 3, 7 portfolio companies raised Series A. Year 4, featured in Forbes. Year 5, net assets crossed $100 million. Year 6, she decided to return to Sutherland and Knox, not for a job, to buy it. In the elevator to the boardroom, Camille caught her reflection in the mirror, not to adjust her appearance, but to truly see the woman they once turned away. She smiled faintly. "Hello again. Shall we begin?" The frosted glass door clicked shut behind Camille. The room fell into near silence. An oval table stretched across the oak-paneled boardroom. 7 men, all dressed in gray, navy, or pitch-black suits, were already seated. Only one chair remained empty at the head of the table. Gerald Klein, chairman of the board, rose as Camille entered. Unlike the receptionist, unlike the interviewers, he extended his hand, firm and deliberate. "Miss Langston, a pleasure. Please, take a seat." Camille shook his hand. Warm, steady. No rush, no arrogance. The kind of handshake earned from decades of wielding quiet authority. "Everything's finalized?" he asked softly, like a code phrase. "Finalized since 8 a.m. this morning. Last transfer just confirmed," Camille replied, taking the remaining seat. Gerald's deep, composed voice began the meeting. "As of this morning, the ownership structure of Sutherland and Knox has officially changed. Langston Holdings now holds 51.4% of voting shares." A salt-and-pepper-haired man furrowed his brow. "And the current board?" "Remains unchanged, for now," Gerald responded. "But the chair will be decided by the representative of the majority shareholder." All eyes turned to Camille. No one said a word, but everyone understood. Camille opened her laptop. Her voice was calm, unhurried, but powerful enough to make the entire room hold its breath. "I'm not here to destroy anything. I'm here to correct the course of a ship that once drifted the wrong way." Another man, the CFO, Victor, asked cautiously, "Forgive me, but how long do you plan to retain the current leadership team?" Camille met his gaze. "Until they learn how to listen, or until I find people who already do." No one replied, but the power shift was unmistakable. As the meeting adjourned, Camille rose. She shook hands with every person in the room. No one dared not to. Just before she exited, she turned to Gerald. "There's one thing I need." "Name it," he said. "I want every employee to hear the announcement from me, not anyone else." "As the—" Gerald asked, gently prompting the confirmation they all knew was coming. Camille gave a quiet smile. "The new executive chairwoman." 11:58 a.m. The 6th floor, where Camille once sat as an anonymous applicant, suddenly fell under a strange, heavy silence. Not because of a fire alarm, but because of a system-wide notification sent from the highest-level internal account. From camille.langston@sutherlandknox.com. Subject, company-wide meeting. Today at 3 p.m. To all staff, I am Camille Langston, the new executive chairwoman of Sutherland & Knox. I will be holding a company-wide meeting at 3 p.m. today in the auditorium on the 10th floor. Attendance is mandatory. No exceptions. We'll talk about culture, about people, and about the things that have never been said loudly enough in this glass house. The receptionist, the security guard, HR, department heads, all read it and froze. Langston? Wasn't that the woman this morning? Wait, she's the chairwoman? But she came in for an interview, didn't she? No, she came to test who we are. In the HR office, the 2 interviewers from earlier exchanged pale looks. The younger one flipped over the folders she'd left behind. Only now did he notice the embossed silver seal on the back. Langston Holdings, Private Capital. A polite trap. A mirror held up. Oh no. Down at the front desk, the guard stared at the security monitor. Camille's image from this morning, walking in without complaint, without attitude, played in silence. He pulled out his phone and opened an old message from his wife. "Be kind, even when the world rushes. You never know who you're standing in front of." 3 p.m., 10th floor auditorium. Packed. No one was late. Camille stepped onto the stage. No papers, no slides, just a pen and a calm, unwavering gaze. I'm Camille Langston. Some of you may have seen me this morning, but you didn't see me. The room held its breath. This morning, I walked in like anyone else. No designer clothes, no assistant, no announcement. And I was treated exactly the way you treat people you think don't matter. I'm not angry. I just took notes. She stepped down from the stage, her voice still gentle but steady. Starting tomorrow, we won't judge people by their shoes, their schools, or their name tags. We'll judge by how they treat those with less power. If that makes you uncomfortable, then maybe this isn't the place for you. And then she ended. This morning, I sat in the waiting area. This afternoon, I stood on this stage. Tomorrow, I'll sit on the ground floor and wait to see, will you look down or will you say hello? The next morning. Camille arrived at the office at 7:45 a.m., earlier than every middle manager, and even the executive team. She walked straight to the second floor, administration, a place usually reserved for logistics staff, internal accounting, and facilities. No one expected an executive chairwoman to show up there, especially not this early. She came unannounced, no assistant, no tailored suit, just Camille, crisp white shirt, hair tied back, flat shoes. At the security desk, Clarence, the guard who'd once told her deliveries go around back, spotted her approaching on the surveillance monitor. He jumped up, his heart pounded, not from fear but from shame. As Camille passed by, he blurted out, "Miss Langston, I'm sorry." She stopped and turned. Her expression wasn't angry, nor was it cold. "You called me by my name. That's a good place to start." Then she nodded. "Good morning, Mr. Clarence." On the 6th floor, the receptionist was dressed more formally than usual. Her eyes were ringed with fatigue from a late night. On her desk sat a small sign, "Welcome to all who have appointments, and even those who don't." Camille noticed. She said nothing, just smiled and walked on. In the pantry, someone from finance was making coffee. In the past, they'd rarely even acknowledged the janitorial staff. Today, a young analyst pressed his lips together, then gave a quiet nod to the woman mopping the floor. "Ma'am, I'm done here. Let me take care of that for you." The woman looked up. Her eyes glistened. On the company's internal monitors, a new announcement appeared: launch of the Culture Reset program. All staff will undergo renewed training on inclusion, respect, and multidimensional communication. Every management level must rotate one shift per month on the operational floor. Camille Langston will conduct random, unannounced supervisory visits. That evening, Camille left the office at 6:30. But she didn't take the executive elevator. She stopped by the delivery area, stood there quietly for a few minutes. No one saw her. She simply watched a delivery worker lug a heavy water container past the front desk. No one offered help. No one opened the door. She stepped forward, held the door gently. The young Latino man thanked her 3 times. Camille smiled. We just started rebuilding this company from that moment. Friday, the end of Camille's first week as executive chairwoman. The small boardroom on the 4th floor lit up earlier than usual. This wasn't a shareholder meeting. It wasn't a financial update. It was an internal gathering, hosted by Camille herself. The meeting's title, Hidden Potential, Faces That Haven't Been Truly Seen. 12 people sat inside. A logistics worker was recently promoted to team leader after 8 years of silence. A young intern who hadn't gone to an Ivy League school, but had submitted an overlooked proposal to improve internal processes. A deaf IT employee who always sat at the end of the table and had never been invited to speak. Camille entered right on time, no assistant, no speech in hand. She brought only one thing: genuine attention. This past week I've heard a lot, from the executive team, from mid-level managers, and from people who were rarely, if ever, asked. But today, I want to hear from you. She pointed to a young woman on her left. What's your name? I'm Maya. I intern in HR. The morning I came in, only one person greeted me as I walked in. That was you, wasn't it? Maya blushed and nodded. I just think anyone who walks in deserves to be acknowledged. Camille smiled. That sentence will be printed on the first floor welcome board next week. She turned to an older man sitting in the corner. You're a systems engineer, right? What's your name? Victor. I've worked here for 11 years, but today is the first time I've been in a meeting with the chairwoman. And you were the one who fixed the elevator gate on Wednesday morning? Yes, but no one noticed. Well, now they will. The whole company will. Each person got 2 minutes, no interruptions. Camille took notes, nodded, followed up with thoughtful questions, and even laughed at just the right moments. When the time was up, she stood. I want sessions like this to become regular, and I'd like to choose 3 of you to join the new Workplace Culture Reform Committee. That same afternoon, a company-wide email was sent. Congratulations to Maya, intern, Victor, systems engineer, and Andrew, warehouse staff, for being appointed to the Workplace Culture Reform Team, alongside the executive chairwoman. Because the voices that are least heard often carry the greatest weight. In the elevators, along the halls, even in the cafeteria. People began talking about the Camille perspective, that the company was no longer just looking upward, but also looking downward, not to belittle, but to lift. And then someone scribbled a line on the HR department's whiteboard. Culture doesn't live in the boardroom. It begins in the hallway. The 15th floor, the highest executive level at Sutherland and Knox, where the doors stay closed, where the walls are lined in leather, not carpet, where the softest words can lead to hundreds of layoffs. It was also where Camille had quietly observed for the past 2 weeks. On Monday morning, she called a private meeting. Only 6 people were invited. Victor Marston, head of HR, the same man who had sat cross-legged across from her during that 8-minute interview. Lindsay Barker, Director of Internal Communications. Darren Wu, Chief Operating Officer. And 3 more from departments that rarely had a voice in executive spaces. Camille arrived 3 minutes late, intentionally. When she entered, no one stood. Victor glanced up only briefly from his screen and said, "We starting?" Camille sat. She didn't open her laptop. I want to begin with a question. Over the past 3 years, how much has this company spent on diversity and inclusion programs? Lindsay, head of communications, replied immediately, approximately $1.2 million. Good. And how many employees without Ivy League degrees currently hold management positions or higher? Silence. No one answered. Camille turned to Victor. You're the head of HR. Do you have the numbers? Victor hesitated. I'd have to look it up. The database categorizes by job level, not educational background. Camille tilted her head, voice even. But if I asked for the percentage from Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton, you'd have that instantly, wouldn't you? Victor froze. Camille pulled out a folder. I have it here. 87% of upper management went to Ivy League schools. 93% are white. 100% of vice presidents and above are men. And only one person ever rejected an applicant on the grounds that she didn't match the brand image. You know who that was, don't you, Victor? No reply was needed. Victor removed his glasses, said nothing. Camille closed the folder. I'm not firing you, but you will be stepping down. temporarily reassigned as an advisor to the new Human Development Program. 2 days later, an internal memo went out. Victor Marston is stepping down as the head of HR. Camille Langston will oversee the department directly until a permanent successor is appointed. By lunchtime, internal chat groups buzzed. She didn't yell, she didn't shame, but she made it clear. Silence is also a responsibility. That night, Camille called her elderly father in Atlanta. "Dad, today I dealt with the man who turned me away 6 years ago." His voice was deep and soft, like a breeze. "You didn't get revenge, you restored balance." Camille smiled. "I don't need their apologies. I just need them not to do it to anyone else." The weekend. Camille returned to Atlanta, home. No assistant, no press release, no black car waiting. Just Camille coming back as a daughter. The old wooden house by the street still stood. The backyard still had the big oak tree, where her mother once hung a faded swing. The paving stones in the yard sank softly under her heels. Camille remembered laying them down with her mother when she was 10. Inside, Mr. Langston, Camille's father, had already made a pot of ginger tea. His eyes had lost their sharpness. His hands trembled slightly, but his smile was as steady as stone. "You're home, huh?" "I'm home, Dad." Camille sat on the worn-out sofa, its color long faded. On the table sat an old photo, her mother, in a navy blue cleaning uniform, wearing a tired smile, standing in front of a towering financial building. Her father said, "Back then, your mom always left for work an hour early, not because she had to, but because she wanted to stand in the lobby for a while. She said, just to feel like I belonged there, even for a moment." Camille said nothing. Then she reached into her bag and took out a brass nameplate. Camille Langston, Executive Chairwoman. She placed it beside her mother's photo. "I brought this back, not to prove anything, but to show her we no longer have to stand in the lobby." Her father nodded, eyes glistening. "She would be proud, not because of the title, but because you kept the promise you made to yourself." That night, Camille lay in her childhood bed, a thin blanket over her. The warm glow of a lamp leaked through the window. She opened the notebook her mother had once kept, filled with grocery lists, old recipes, and occasionally tiny ballpoint pen dreams. One day, Camille won't have to work extra hours just to be seen. Camille closed her eyes. She didn't sleep. She just let her heart breathe in rhythm with the past. The next morning, before leaving, she took out a pen and wrote one more line beneath her mother's words. "Now, I help others be seen." Then she closed the notebook and placed it back on the shelf. There was no need to take it with her, because everything she needed was already inside her. 3 months later. Sutherland & Knox was no longer just another financial firm. Free coffee on the 3rd floor was no longer its proudest feature. Instead, a bulletin board stood near the entrance, updated weekly with real stories. Who was truly seen this week? Who helped someone else be seen? Victor, once head of HR, now the onboarding trainer, sat in the lounge teaching the difference between evaluation and prejudice. He often began with one sentence. "I once looked at someone and didn't see who they were. Don't make the same mistake." In internal meetings, Camille no longer sat alone at the head of the table. She rotated her seat each week, from the back corner to the middle of the back row. She'd say, "I don't need a big chair, I need a broad perspective." In the cafeteria, intern Maya was now a full-time staff member. She had proposed the now adopted policy, 3 minutes of listening per week. Every employee must spend 3 minutes speaking with someone outside their department. No KP is, no reports, just listening. Camille said, "That's how you build an organization, without a budget." On the last day of the quarter, employees received a new email from the chairwoman. From Camille Langston at sutherlandknox.com. Subject: Who have you truly seen? I don't need you to change the world. I just ask that each of us, every day, truly see one person. Even just one. See them as a human being, not a title, not a resume. Because when I was turned away from this company 6 years ago, what hurt wasn't losing the job. It was the feeling that I didn't exist, and today, if I can help anyone escape that feeling, then all of us are chair people. The lights in the Sutherland and Knox building still shone as always, but the hallways, they were different. Every nod, every good morning or how are you, every gaze that truly met another's eyes, Goktak, became a quiet declaration. We see you, and you deserve to be seen. Camille Langston didn't change the world with power alone. She changed it with a hallway, with a waiting chair, and with a heart that didn't need anyone's permission to exist.